Hello, my name is Jotun Vega. I am the writer, director, cinematographer, editor, producer, and co-star of the film you're currently watching, called Wild Odds. And we're beginning off with this really nice opening shot that I still like to this day, because it does introduce everything all in just one shot, and that was because I didn't have enough time to do it.
What
And
happened here?
also because I got this nice effect of these guys turning their heads, like taking turns to it. And I also like this opening credits because of the fact that I originally was supposed to have a simple split screen, but because they were using the same background, I was using the same setup, I was able to get them in a different type of color scheme, just to represent what stories they would be telling. I only had at least like, I think two months or like even just a couple of weeks just to film, to write, shoot, and edit this entire thing. And it was in such a rush to get something done and to just basically make something that I could put my name alone on to show what I'm capable of doing. This is kind of like Wild Odds. Wild Odds is just not a deep movie. It's basically just a cinematic exercise in different forms and styles. And this first story is inspired by the work of Yasujiro Ozu, hence why it's in 4:3, black and white, and using a 55mm lens, as we are just showing very still shots of life. And I like the symmetry here with the hydraulics and the rows of doors in this hallway. And then we go from that to a lovely shot, out of focus shot of Caden right here, who plays Howard. I think in retrospect, I do think I've now gotten a lot more better with audio. I'm recording this in 2026. This is almost 3 years since I've done Wild Odds, and I think I've gotten a lot more better with what I've been doing. This is a nice trip down memory lane. So there's the stock phone vibration that I found on YouTube that I kept using until Where Have You Been? But then I stopped using that because I didn't like the free sounds. And there's Quinn playing Billy. Originally supposed to be a guy, spelled Billy, but since I could only get Quinn to do it because only had a few weeks to finish this movie, I just changed the name to Billie because I was that lazy. You're welcome.
Well, last time I checked, I wasn't briefed on people's assumptions on my mental health.
I like the formal dialogue at this point.
That's all he said.
I was trying to very much have it be like very easy to nice to listen to, like the way they say these lines. To add story for that camera on the table, that was a gift from my older sister who had access to a 3D printer and gave me that. So when I needed a prop that was supposed to be important to this character, I thought it would be best to use something that had more sentimental value to it. Hence why I decided to use that. And I would then also ask my older sister to 3D print me other stuff for my other work, because it was really nice to have these things that have more emotional value, these characters.
It's disrespectful.
Boy, do I have a lot of stories about Rory's acting.
I had my fears.
Rory, the guy who plays Vincent, because it was very much a surreal moment to have to direct Rory Brennan Jones.
But at that point, it was...
Oh boy. So with this section, I was inspired by like Paul Thomas Anderson's early work, like Boogie Nights and Magnolia. Hence why it's in widescreen, nice colors, and it also moves at a very frenetic pace. You gotta realize how many times I had to read these lines to Rory to get him to say it in a very emotional way, and to at least be a human being while we're filming.
Can you meet me at the bridge lounge?
Because I don't think he knows how to act like one. It was such a funny experience to realize, like, if I could direct Rory Brennan Jones, I could do anything. I could direct anybody. But it was funny because like he offered to help me with this film, and after we made this movie, he's never offered his assistance to any of my other films again, because I think he knew how much of a pain it was to have to direct him. But it's funny now. I have no ill will to Rory.
Pick up some tickets to an event involving a celebrity.
Which one?
A big one.
I do like this shot, like how wide angle it is with this close up.
But he pretended not to notice me when I tried to get his attention.
And you know, in this shot, we had to teach Rory how to jog like a normal human being because it was nearly impossible to get him to do it like a normal jog. You gotta realize how much me and Joshua, who plays Brian here, had to basically train him in this. It was absolutely crazy.
About the tickets. The thing was, he seemed fed up with me.
You know, I've gotten compliments about that nice dolly zoom on Rory's shoulder. It's really good. I do like that. Like, the way we filmed this scenes was that I just moved the camera around to different angles, improvising while they were talking, just so I can have more things to work with when I was editing, so I can put them into this nice little montage. Like, my entire film form relies heavily on not planning ahead and just improvising on the spot, because I like this quote from Steven Soderbergh when he says, "It's really hard to be pretentious when you're moving very fast." So in my case, I'm moving very fast because I had to finish the screenplay quickly. I had to finish shooting quickly because this was a final project for a class, and I did not get the whole 4 month semester to work on this. I only had a few weeks to turn in something so I can get a good grade for like that class 161 Intro to Video Art. Shout out to Daniel Tourette. And here, this final story is heavily inspired by Emmanuel Lubezki's cinematography, so it's wide-angle lenses, desaturated colors. All these scenes play out in one take. And also the reading of the messages out loud was inspired by The Age of Innocence. I like this scene when Winona Ryder in that film was saying what she written in letters to Daniel Day-Lewis towards the camera. And I thought that would be a nice way to like show exposition without just showing writing on screen, because I know people can get bored by that. Alright, I have a good story about this. So originally, I had someone play the TA. But the day of, she did not actually... She decided to quit the day we were supposed to film. And so, I had no girl to help me play the TA. So instead of that, what you see that previously is this whip pan effect, where I put an invisible cut, and Joshua's arms play the TA, so I can have enough characters for the story to make sense. That's how dedicated he'll be to that. And he was very conscious about the fact that you could still see his very hairy arms while we were filming that, and he's supposed to play a girl. So that was pretty funny to look back at. But Joshua was really great to work with. Well, this was my first introduction to directing him in a movie, and it was very much something I realized I much love Joshua Sciavi as the actor. I think he's a great actor, and I think he's too modest to admit that about himself. And that's why I put him in other things. I put him in Where Have You Been? I put him in Memory Reel. I put him in Beyond the Frame and Genesee. And if I ever any other chance, I'll put him in anything else, because I think he's a very natural person. He knows how to deliver dialogue and be dedicated to expressing himself in any way I need him. And that was the good part about working with him. Like, even when he said he was not available to play the lead, I would put him in any role. If it was a minor role, I would put him in. If it's supporting, I would. If he had time to be the lead, I would put him as the lead. He was very much a blessing at the University of Rochester to have this actor who can work. This scene is entirely improvised because I didn't know what type of dialogue to give them, so I just let them go. Because my philosophy is, if you put one improv scene in any sequence, it can be a good comparison to whatever you have written. Because if the improv is as good as the dialogue scenes, then people can believably see these like characters as either friends or enemies or as lovers, you know. So this was pretty funny how much they were trying to form this argument, and they kept stuttering and talking over each other, and I feel like that does help with their dynamics, because they don't really know how to, because technically they're all supposed to be friends. They don't really know how to fight with each other.
Howard was with Brian's.
And this section was inspired by JFK, with the narration and this fast-paced editing to put all these stories together to show what the reality of it was, not what these characters believed it to be. Although this was a hellish experience to record, because I was in my dorm room using a cheap microphone, And the big problem with me then was the fact that when it comes to reciting lines, it is really hard for me to enunciate because I'm also conscious about saying the right words and pronouncing it right, that I end up slurring my speech, and you can even hear it in some of the narration, like how much slurring I do with my talking. And I had to do numerous takes so I didn't sound like completely stupid.
Finally, Vincent met up with Brian to receive
And I
tickets
think
to
it also
Sixth
took
Floor
away
event.
from me being able to
Vincent
try
believed
to
that
have this
Brian's
more
going to be
stern
fed up
way
with
of
him and
talking,
that he
even
would
though I
get
know I
left
can
behind by
talk
his
more
friends.
in a
But
more
Brian only
concrete
assumed that
fashion.
Vincent was a moocher who was only his buddy for the stuff he can get out of it. Neither situation could have been more incorrect. So,
Alright, so about
this
this sequence. This was some of the last things we shot, because I knew this would be a very difficult thing to film, which was the fights. So firstly, I had the actors improvise their fights, like the top, everything they say, their actions. It's entirely like said, do whatever you want, and it gets so ridiculous that I love it. We shot more of the fight scene, but I eventually cut it down because I felt like I had pacing issues if I still kept it going for too long. I thought we should just end it more quickly, and they didn't really like the fact that I did that.
I'm sorry about this.
I feel like I should probably be apologizing more than you.
It was even funnier because while we were filming the destruction, two people tried to come in because they wanted to bake a cake in this community area with this kitchen. So they were waiting outside while we were outright destroying this entire place. And it was like one of the funniest things to ever happen for someone to walk in on this really ridiculous thing you're doing as a final project. So that was fun. And this was the actual last shot we filmed because, I thought it'd be more smarter if we just had the actors clean up to have the set entirely be reset, like this location be reset, and also to just have something that plays while the credits roll, because I kind of don't just like cutting to black immediately and just having the white text on the black screen. I like there to be something interesting to look at, so you don't just get up and just leave. And just back there, you just saw Joshua looking at the poker board, which he actually destroyed because during one of the scenes we were shooting, he chucked it across the room, and I saw that it split in half. And it was funny to then just say, "You broke my prop," because that was the first time I ever had something break on me while filming. So this was actually really fun to do, and it took until me finishing the film and showing it to people for them to really understand what I was going for, because none of them had seen Rashomon, which was the inspiration to this, and so it was very fulfilling for them to not only like it but to also like the editing, because they were a big fan of that. So it was good. So we're at the end here. So yeah, thanks for listening to me, and thanks for watching Wild Odds.